It's trending now. Well, for years now, there's been a hashtag on Twitter, Free Britney, fans claiming that pop star Britney Spears is effectively a prisoner of her father, backed by the law. Now, I thought this was just tabloid stuff, but yesterday there was a court hearing that raises very serious questions about how much control the state should be allowed to have over people, even disturbed people. Britney Spears first became a star as a performer in the Mickey Mouse Club and didn't take long to stand out.
Dale,
Jennifer, Justin, Carrie,
JC,
Brittany.
I wanna believe in everything that you say.
Then she became one of the world's biggest pop stars, turning from an innocent girl into a highly sexualised woman. And then came, unfortunately, a series of very public breakdowns, obviously some sort of mental distress, in part from living so long in the spotlight.
What do you think it'll take to get the paparazzi to leave you alone?
I don't know. I don't know.
Is that one of your biggest wishes?
Yeah.
13 years ago, Britney Spears was legally put under the control of her father. She's now challenging that. She's 39, claiming she's kept almost as a slave. She's said that she's still made to perform and earn, even when she's sick, by the way, and not allowed to spend her own earnings. These are controlled by her father. Spears, who's 39, has 2 sons with her former husband, lost control of them, says she's even forced to have an IUD and cannot even get permission to remove it, so she can now have more children with a new boyfriend. Joining me is Daisy Cousens, a YouTube star with her own video channel. Daisy, this is an extraordinary story. The issue's been kept alive for years on the internet. Now it's suddenly a big mainstream media issue. What's changed?
Well, I think what's changed is that Britney is finally petitioning it and finally having her day in court. I mean, it sort of bubbled along, under the surface, but we haven't heard that much about it. But now, thanks to that incredibly loyal fan base of hers, which has kept it bubbling along for years, plus the sudden mainstream media interest because of the court dates, she's finally having her side of the story put out, which I think is a really good thing, because the conservatorship it's always been quite controversial. I mean, partly because of the way it started. Back in 2008, I think there was a custody dispute. Then she was found to be at her house on illicit drugs, and then she was put into a psych ward, none of which is good. But there are plenty of people who have custody disputes, go into a psych ward and are on drugs, who don't end up under a conservatorship. I mean, that seems to be a little bit much, particularly since she was released from the institution 5 days later. So, and then the fact that it has continued for 13 years. I mean, that's a long time for anything, particularly since she seems to have been quite functional during those 13 years. She's been able to work, she's been able to tour, she's been able to perform, she's been able to maintain relationships with people. She has a boyfriend. She's hardly in a padded room, and whatever's wrong with her seems to be controlled by medication. It is a fairly interesting issue here. And what's also very controversial about it is the sheer level of control that her father has over her in terms of the IUD. The fact she's forced to have a contraceptive method in her to prevent her from having children at the behest of her father and her handlers is particularly disturbing to me. So I'm so pleased she's having her day in court, and I certainly hope the right decision is made.
And I think for important context, we should add that the fortune her father controls is worth nearly $80 million. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Daisy, as some people are saying that he could be the new Republican candidate for president, has already banned critical race theory in schools, for instance. Now he's announced new school programs to make high schools in Florida teach students about the evils of communism and totalitarian ideologies. Here he is.
We have a number of people in Florida, particularly southern Florida, who've escaped totalitarian regimes who've escaped communist dictatorships to be able to come to America. We want all students to understand the difference. Why would people leave these countries and risk their life to be able to come here? It's important that students understand that.
And of course, Florida's got a lot of Cubans who fled the communist regime in Cuba. How is that message going down?
Oh, it is going down so well on conservative Twitter. They are absolutely loving it. That clip is absolutely flying around. He's getting so much affirmation for it. And I think it is particularly fantastic because it is such a blow to be struck in the culture war. I mean, in the fact that for as long as I can remember, communism and socialism have been presented as not that bad. You know, it's been, in fact, not only not that bad, but desirable, according to some people. I mean, it's never, so far as I can remember, been socially unacceptable to publicly declare yourself a communist, even though communism, it's estimated, killed about 100 million people in the 20th century alone. That is tens of millions more people killed than the Nazis killed when it came to Jewish people. It's a very evil ideology, and it's incredibly important that students learn this. I mean, I remember, Andrew, a few years ago, I kid you not, I was sitting in an airport and I heard a gentleman close to me talking to someone he'd just met, saying that not only was he a communist, that he was on his way to Cuba to do a pilgrimage for communists, and he handed her a flyer for this communist pilgrimage. I mean, if he did that and said he was a fascist, he would probably have been arrested and put on a terror watch list. So I think this is fantastic from Ron DeSantis, and I think he's absolutely gunning for a 2024 presidential run. He's doing particularly well in a number of polls that have come out when it comes to people deciding who they want to be the nominee, and I do hope he continues on this trajectory because it is doing him very well.
I wonder whether the same sort of thing could be done here. I played yesterday a clip of our education minister saying no to the national curriculum. He said, well, look, it's teaching kids to actually dislike their country. And we're told, you know, when migrants come here, they face all sorts of, you know, racism and terrible, terrible stuff. Perhaps we should have a course. Why would so many people from so many countries, including authoritarian countries, want to come to Australia in the first place? Very educative. Daisy Cousens, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Andrew.